Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of video game news. Today is Wednesday, May 29th. Let me just double check to make sure everything is working. Ran into a issue connecting to the YouTube server, and I'm immediately, anytime there's even a slight issue, it really does then just beg the question, did YouTube once again just delete my channel? That's exactly what I think. There, it just, that is totally what I expect. But no, it seems like it was just a connection. Here, the festival, I guess, ended, and we've got some daily quests and logins and dual lives, and so we'll just receive everything we can receive, and that'll be the end of the festival. They added some new solo gates under the notifications here whenever I would have free time to deal with that. So yeah, this fusion event ended and I didn't play enough to get to this thing, so this may very well be the first instance of just missing out on some content. But let's just be honest here. The massive amounts of card protectors and icons and icon frames and titles and mates and wallpapers. It's just way too much garbage microtransactions, and inherently that's what's going to be a good excuse, at least, to stop playing this game. It's just to say, look at all of this nonsense that they want you to spend the gems on, and how there's just such an incredibly high focus on purchasing all of this, and no focus really at all on purchasing cards to actually build a deck that would be playable and ranked. Like, it seems like it is very easy and doable to purchase things that don't matter, and then it is fairly impossible to purchase things that do matter. These structured decks, for instance, helpful if you're brand new to the game, not super helpful any other case. The free cards you get here, not helpful at all. The crafting mechanism, in which you have specific crafting points for normal cards versus specific crafting points for super rares and ultra rares and rares, just doesn't make any sense. All of these expansions give you cards that really don't seem like they would lead to any way of actually building anything. Then I suppose we should check here and see if there was some chance that I should open like 10 packs of this, which I could, but I almost just don't care enough to do it. There are super rares here that you might get. Ultra rares, less likely to happen. You just don't get enough gems as a free-to-play player to engage pretty much with the game at all. Yeah, this one I should buy 10 packs at least. So then that finds us a new card pack, and we got some ultra rares there. Now when we look, are we closer? Nope, there's still a decent amount of cards to buy another pack from. Generally 20 to 30 cards. Notice we only got one new ultra rare and some new rares. It is all very much a game of compromise as far as opening these packs, because now it's all about just super rares. So if I was to purchase one more, which we'll do, notice we're not even getting ultra rare packs from the looks of it. Yeah, and I just have no idea what these cards are. Don't know if they're playable, and just don't want to put in the time to care about it. There definitely is a lifestyle if you want to be a fair weather casual fan of card games. There definitely is a lifestyle choice to play games when they first launch, get very hyped about them, play them for maybe a year or two, and then once they've become just overburdened by their own expansion, drop them like a bad habit at that point. Yeah, there is an argument to buy this, but that's probably using too much gems at this point. And then inherently this is going to fill in even more secret packs. So then that would send me down the path of considering to do all of these, and I'm not even going to bother to look at these. And I am instead going to hop into rank. We have basically 2 days here to get 8 victories in a row. There are other combinations there, but the easiest way would be to, in this live stream, somehow get 8 victories in a row to get the platinum. Otherwise I'm falling down to silver next month, and who knows, that's just the downward direction it may go. And honestly, there might be a slight balancing element on the rank system. There should be more than a slight balancing element, but I don't know if I really trust that, where if I fell down to silver every month, I would be playing against such weak decks that it would be easier to get back up to gold and just maintain gold. Yeah. As for the catch-up section, still spending a ton of time running around Fallout New Vegas. I'm a little confused as far as the timeline of the release dates of New Vegas, because New Vegas seems like it came out 4 years after Fallout 3. It feels to me like it is a pale imitation of Fallout 3 as far as the story writing goes, and the overall just elements in it. It seems like a lot of it is just copy and pasted from Fallout 3. And my suspicion is that maybe New Vegas was in the works before Fallout 3 actually was released, and Obsidian was acting as a second-party developer to help develop Fallout 3, and then they took all the good parts that Obsidian made and made New Vegas. At a certain level, there's a few game experiment changes that would make New Vegas not quite work as DLC for Fallout 3, but really it could have just been one giant bit of DLC. But yeah, I took the Explorer perk, which shows every location on the map, and I have now looked at the bottom half of the map for every location that I missed, and every single location really is just a small shack. They don't have any real values. It feels like they're, and I keep using this phrase, but like that it feels like their concept was that you were gonna need to sleep a lot more often and get the well rested bonus. Why can I not do anything? Yeah, it feels like you'd use the campfires a lot more. But I took like every single item that I thought you could use to craft at the campfire, because from the one house in New Vegas that you would want to keep everything, that is that there is no campfire to cook. There's a mod to add that, and I would definitely recommend adding that mod. It's just kind of ridiculous that you'd have to pick up everything, walk through 3 load sequences to get to the closest campfire, if you even knew where the campfire is, and then cook. But that's what I did. I took everything super overburdened, nearly 1,000 pounds of weight when you could only carry about 200 pounds of weight. But yeah, walked it to the campfire and still couldn't really cook anything or create anything. So the whole survival cooking mechanic, I think, falls apart. That there might be a case where it doesn't fall apart if you're playing some of the DLC, because it does kind of feel like some of the DLC may start you back at square one, and you won't have all of the armor and all of the weapons, and maybe you just won't have any doctor locations where you could go get healed, so you'd have to cook more food to eat it. And if you were playing on hardcore mode, or even if I was playing above very easy, I would be getting thirsty a lot more often and having to drink water, and that maybe makes sense why there's so many sunset sarsaparillas instead of Nuka-Colas in New Vegas. But yeah, you need a perk to be able to craft your own sunset sarsaparillas or Nuka-Colas, and so you'd have to take that fairly early if you're playing on that survival mode. And that's the one thing I think that maybe is why that so many people sing the praises of New Vegas, is that they played the game for the first time in one way, and that you would more expect that you'd play a Bethesda game trying to do all the quests, which seems pretty much impossible, and just trying to have that single player normal experience. But I feel like the people that continued to play New Vegas and sing its praises were probably people who were playing the game more as a role-playing game, just deciding that they're going to be a bad guy in one run. And really, you could play it in hardcore mode like a roguelike game. Maybe that would make some sense too. But overall, it just feels to me like the people who over the years keep singing the praises of New Vegas are making their own fun there. Same is true for Skyrim. The people who in 2024 are singing the praises of Skyrim and still playing it are inevitably putting a whole bunch of mods in it, probably adult mods every now and as a big factor, and they're making their own fun in an engine that's really not, I think, as good as it should be. Yeah, Bethesda's gimmick of making their games moddable would have been a very valid sales pitch decades ago, but by modern standards, when you see modders getting threatened and taken down, and when you see how even an update, as games are constantly getting patched and updating, there is just, yeah, there's just no room for a safe modding experience. This is not working. I have like 100 seconds before it's gonna auto surrender. And this is just not fair. The game is slowing down, and I don't even think it's counting the seconds accurately. I think it's counting 2 seconds. Like, look at the timer over there. It seems like it's jumping 2 seconds every 1 second. So, yeah. There really isn't a lot to report otherwise as far as Fallout New Vegas. I'm going to go through the top half of all the locations that exist and see what's there. And then the game is so glitched that I'll have to see if I can finish the game using the wild card path. The game has glitched so much now. I cannot wait anywhere. I can't hit the back button. It doesn't pop up the menu at all. I cannot hit the left bump and see myself in third-person perspective either. Which, in fairness, that is a kind of pointless feature, but it's a feature you might as well have exist. This is a mistake to have activated this now, because now I'm gonna have to summon a 3 character. But I would have wanted to summon a 4 character. It's alright, I think we can still do something here with that. See, I don't think I have too much else to really catch up on. The mobile game I'm still playing, Memento Mori, is about to update, so is Tinkerfuma. Everything updates at the end of the month. I'm still playing those. That how-to video I made has gotten all 4 views, and I haven't gone back to actually see if I could better label things. Yeah. And yeah, it's not like I'm not making footage. It's just that every episode of Fallout New Vegas is 2 or 3 hours. No, it's not 3 hours, but it's an hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours long every time. And that is messing me up in parts because it is pushing me towards staying up late when I'm still really in a situation where I need to be more awake at 9 in the morning and asleep at 10 p.m. Yeah. I'm uploading Fallout New Vegas videos, and some of them are getting blocked because of the music, and that shows me 2 things. A, I should have uploaded videos way earlier. I waited until I was fully almost out of out of hard drive space before I bothered to start uploading things. I need to more consistently upload things. I have been running my macro to make the YouTube shorts still happen. That's, I guess, the one thing that I am making some small amount of progress on. I think one of the lesser events, streaming events, is happening right now, and so there is a level there of games starting to get announced as we're entering the summer. We still haven't had a Steam Summer Sale announcement coming, but also I've kind of blown the budget, so I'm not really expecting to do anything for the Steam Summer Sale, although there are games to play, certainly. I'm hearing the beginnings of good news from the Rogue Prince of Persia game in early access. And I had some thought of something I needed to do on the Steam Deck, and then I forgot it immediately. I still am really not doing anything with the Steam Deck. It is just pathetic, the amount of usage I'm putting into that, which is almost none. It is nice to, I guess, have something that is a backup computer, which is definitely helpful. And the portability in concept is nice. The Steam Deck is so nice in concept, but actually picking it up and playing it seems to be the problem. I feel like a big argument is definitely I've gotten better about playing my phone games when I'm on the toilet, so, and generally I used to not do that. I was more germophobic about that, but a cell phone is just such a smaller device, and it's more expensive really than a Steam Deck might be, but yeah, I just wouldn't bring a Nintendo Switch or a Steam Deck into the bathroom unless it was just sitting there, and even then, both of those expect longer sessions of play. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I really just don't have anything else to say. I'm sitting here in silence, and I'm just trying to think about what I've even been doing. My favorite Chinese smart device, cheap Chinese smart device company, or it's not really the company that makes the devices, it's the company that tries to help a whole bunch of other small Chinese companies with the software and having just one integrated platform. It's almost like the Matter Group if the Matter Group was not being run by the likes of Microsoft and other companies that all kind of hate each other and don't want to work together. I think Microsoft is in the Matter Group. But yeah, Tuya is having a software development conference, and I have them subscribed to on my YouTube channel, and they put out a 4-hour live stream of just a bunch of Chinese people speaking in Chinese, and I don't speak Chinese, so very hard to get anything. Hopefully they will find a way to translate that. Or, I mean, that is, I guess, a great example of where AI might actually be helpful, and I don't even know if you really want to call that AI, but they definitely would as far as YouTube. It's just to have automatic translation. But yeah, if they're having a conference as far as programming, then they are on the verge of announcing some updates. And I definitely can say that the Tuya app has added some updates recently, so they are putting work into it, which is always nice to see. That might break a few small things, but tends not to break anything. Yeah, I don't know what the point of that really is, other than I imagine this will be the beginning of new smart devices doing perhaps new interesting things in the next 6 months to a year, whereas I'd say we are at a very stable point with smart devices, and that they all kind of do everything you would expect them to do until somebody can invent something new that you didn't even know you wanted. The Android Find My Phone network to work with the Apple AirTag network has started to roll out now, so there is going to be, I think, an increase in lost devices detection. That being said, I would suspect that ultra wideband as a technology is being thrown out the window. Like, it's probably just too expensive, and it's just not something that's being integrated into everything. Which that doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe it's a patent issue. It probably is a patent issue or some other legal issue. But you would think at least cell phones themselves would have a ultra wideband technology built in for detection, so that you could find a lost cell phone, a lost $800 device, down to the centimeter of where it is. But maybe you just don't need that, because cell phones would have to still be on to do the ultra wideband. The battery couldn't be completely dead, or it couldn't be turned off. And if they're on, just having your phone ring is good enough for most people. Yeah. I guess what I've mostly been doing is I'm still just kind of trying to break out of the Memorial Day weekend and sales, and just looking at things to buy, and kind of almost immediately after looking at things to buy, I'm also thinking about switching out some things and maybe sending some things back. In particular, I got this Cardia EKG device. Well, Cardia has been bought out by Omron, which is a blood pressure device, and Omron has a total health device that has an EKG and a blood pressure cuff built in, both of which sync to your phone, so you can see patterns of what's going on as far as your health. The problem with the Omron Total Health, though, is that it loses the portability of the Cardia. And in the Cardia, there are two models, and I would definitely recommend getting the one that doesn't look like a credit card. Because the one that looks like a credit card has a built-in battery and will only last 2 years. But I couldn't really recommend either one, because it's almost certainly going to be a case that Omron is going to eventually phase those out. Getting the total health means that you would have to sit for about 30 seconds to get your blood pressure and the EKG done, but it would be the same 30 seconds. But then it is also a bigger device, and that may also run into some issues once you, if the EKG messes up or the blood pressure messes up, will it not transfer the other information to the app? That certainly is a question that would be something you'd like to know the answer to, but you probably won't find out until you get it done. Yeah, the Cardia I got was about $70, and the blood pressure cuff and EKG is only about $100, so you're paying not much of a premium for a top-of-the-line Bluetooth connected blood pressure extra. I have the very first generation of the Omron Bluetooth thing, and it is terrible. It cannot connect ever. Like, in 2 days of trying just to see if I could get it to connect, to see if maybe it would update the firmware over that connection, it connected exactly once, and that was it. And it has never worked as far as transferring the data. On the other hand, I would also say that Omron, though, is still missing a beat. That even though the app can do blood pressure and EKG and weight, it is not doing anything as far as blood glucose. And it would be very, very trivial for it to simply have a blood glucose meter that also worked with their app, or build it even into the total health if they're going to say total health. So at least I think that's what it's called. It's not really total health because it doesn't have the scale built in either. The total health should be a bundle of several different devices. Yeah, and I don't know if there's anything else anybody really measures that often. Like theoretically, I guess maybe some drug people and alcoholics are being tested for alcohol, but a breathalyzer at home is not really a product that most people need. There is probably a device to be invented in the future as far as testing people's breath for like signs of cancer or something like that, stomach cancer, esophagus cancer, things like that, but I don't think such a device has been invented yet. And yeah, there's probably some specialized people that are testing for some things. I guess it is kind of weird that it doesn't have a temperature device built in too. Yeah. And the Omron app does connect to like Google Health on the Android app, but all of those systems are still way too early days. Yeah. Suppose a CPAP device connecting to an Omron would also be useful. CPAP devices, as far as people with sleep apnea, though, have gone the exact opposite direction in that they have built-in cell phone connections, all the new ones do, that are reporting all the data directly to a monitoring group working for your doctor, I'm sure. That's the only way you can get insurance to pay for it, is if it is being constantly monitored. More and more that is going to be the case, is that they're going to not really tell people that they're getting CPAP devices for free or the insurance is paying for it, but the trade-off is the insurance is saying we're gonna monitor it and make sure people are actually using it, which for CPAPs, yeah, a lot of people can't stand using them, which is understandable. Toothbrushes, I guess, would be another thing. It should be connected all in one app, and it's just not there. Bed monitors in general, as far as a smart house, are a nice idea to know when people get in bed, when people get out of bed, or same kind of pressure sensor could be used in a wheelchair or a chair to see if somebody's falling out of a chair. The fear always is that there would be a toilet that would just sample everything coming out of you and tell you things, and while they've announced like one device like that a couple of years ago, it went nowhere. It definitely was vaporware, and nobody was going to buy something like that. That seems just way too invasive. Pregnancy tests being monitored in the United States is an insane thought at this point, because any evidence that you make that you're pregnant may be used against you in the United States at this point. Yeah, there probably should be some kind of movement that all male, assigned at birth male people on the in the United States should buy pregnancy tests in bulk and just say they were giving it away to strangers and giving it away to yeah, strangers, I guess, would be the best thing to say there. That way nobody through a credit card purchase can be tracked to actually purchasing pregnancy tests who is female. But then there's even a danger of that, because if a husband did that, then they would just assume the wife or the daughters were pregnant. So it would have to be every single male with no female connections that can be proven would need to smuggle those kinds of device tests. Yeah, I think I am rambling quite a bit today. Let's actually talk about some video game news instead of the downfall of freedoms in the United States. That's getting way too political. Video Games Chronicle says that Modern Warfare 3 and Warzone patch notes detail today's Season 4 update, if you're interested in that. Sony's Days of Play sale includes 30% off PlayStation Plus and $50 off of PS5 consoles. I don't feel like Sony has made a great argument as far as why you would want to buy a PS5 right now, unless there is some other reason. Ron Howard, I believe it's Ron Howard, no, Ron Gilbert, no, yeah, was the guy who was attributed as far as making Monkey Islands. He made the new Return to Monkey Island and made his new company Terrible Toy Box. And that all happened, and it happened with some controversy as far as the new art style, and people not really liking the new art style, and him getting upset that people weren't really liking the new art style. But yeah, they are promoting this limited run collector's edition box, which I don't feel like is so much a limited run, because it would have been pre-ordering from January 20th to March 5th, unless they're talking 2025, which maybe they are. that seems like this has already happened. And so this would be an anthology box also that has weirdly some kind of collectible keys for each console you bought it for. Interesting. Oh, so they want you to buy the collector's box apparently 6 or 5 times. And yeah, this is I'm assuming this is all of the Monkey Island games, including Return to Monkey Island. Yeah. Which, when you get down into the details of the Monkey Island games, there's, I guess, a lot going on there as far as which ones you want to be canon, which ones Ron Gilbert wanted to be canon. He really only wanted the games he worked on, which would have been Monkey Island 1 and 2 and Return to Monkey Island. As far as the Telltale Monkey Island games, I'm not sure those are even in this collection. So it may not be all of the Monkey Island games still. Yeah. Even doing all of this stuff, I'm not sure I have a way of defeating this guy. I may straight up need to just quit. Let's see if this works. Yeah, I think I'm gonna lose here. So the hope would be that you could do this. To do this. To summon this. See if we can activate this ability. Nope. You see, yeah. I think he probably has just defeated me. Yep, I think I've just been completely defeated here. So yeah, they're promoting the upgrade kit with an exclusive white key. I guess they have been promoting Monkey Island merchandise. In a lot of ways, Ron Gilbert is one of these old game developers who got promoted very much as a big deal and just couldn't live up to that hype, which in fairness, I'm not sure anybody can live up to that hype. But yep. definitely feels like there are some people that should just be put on vanity teams to make vanity projects, and then the bigger success of the game companies should hire newer people with less expectations to try new, different things. But yeah, I can't help but feel like Todd Howard is the reason why Bethesda games take so long to be developed. Is that his management style is too tightly controlled, and the world of making video games today is very much closer to what the way Microsoft does things, which is to have just ownership over teams, but not really any oversight over the teams. I personally wish Return to Monkey Island was much better received, and that Ron Gilbert had just maybe ignored any criticism, because that might have been a small bump to bring back point and click adventures, which I still feel like adventure games in general at least deserve a resurgence. But inherently it's undeniable that there is a fairly high focus these days on fast-paced Twitch reaction video gaming, and very little focus on strategy or even storytelling so much. Yep. People just don't want to think. It is probably a symptom of just being overworked in other aspects of your life, or just exhausted by other aspects of your life. Certainly it was a case where if 100 years ago you were riding on a stagecoach or riding in a train, you would have nothing to do, so you could just pull out a book and read it and be more thoughtful. But now there's just so many other things to do. Almost in sharp contrast of Ron Gilbert and the way Monkey Island has gone, CD Projekt Red is saying it wants to release major games more frequently. The company has a handful of projects in development. Definitely feels like, yeah, CD Projekt Red wants to scale up and become what Ubisoft may have been at one point, what Activision would have been at one point. Noticeably, there really isn't a company quite like those companies were, just churning out multiple AAA games in a short time span. But yeah, we'll see how that works. You have to still take CD Projekt Red's ambition with a grain of salt, because you have to also remember that while Witcher 3 was one of the greatest games that it has been released in the past decade, it still had a problem of just getting a little too grindy in that middle section, and there were a lot of elements and in The Witcher that I just don't think transfer well to other kinds of games. And then Cyberpunk 2077 was just an absolute mess. So CD Projekt really here is trying to make everybody forget how terrible Cyberpunk started off with, and make you believe that if they churn out a new game or two, it's not going to be in that same state, which hopefully it wouldn't be in that same state. inherently making a statement saying they want to release more major games more frequently should be a 10-year plan to say that they plan by 2030 to have a game coming out every year or two instead of the scale here, which is The Witcher 1 2007, 2011 for Witcher 2, and 2015 and 2020. And I would say The Witcher 1 and The Witcher 2 probably don't even count because that's a very different CD Projekt, if CD Projekt even made the first two Witcher games. 5-year difference here, more realistically, could be scaled down to a 4-year difference, which would mean they would need to release and announce a game in this year, and that's just not realistic. So yeah, you get back to a 10-year plan of 2034 being the point where they start to be able to actually scale up. That's how I would see it and think about it. Let's see if we can do something fancy here. And destroy cards. So he's going to counter this card. It's going to stop him from countering this card, which did absolutely nothing. This is going to be the last game I play for today. The other part of this certainly is that strong Cyberpunk 2077 sales, and this is from GameDeveloper.com, led to CD Projekt's early 2024 profits, which instead of saying they want to make more games more often, which is to say we're going to spend more money and not have as much profits, they probably should just admit that they aren't going to have a big seller, so they're not going to have more profits. But I guess it is a nice manipulation to say, well, we're ambitious and so we're going to reinvest all that money, instead of saying we're not going to release anything anytime soon, so don't expect anything from us. Video Games Chronicle says Xbox has reportedly signed a first game from the Rocksteady co-founders' new studio. 100 Star Games is said to be developing a single-player action-adventure game. Rocksteady, not to be confused with Rockstar, I guess. Let's see. PlayStation State of Play has been announced for Thursday, so tomorrow a State of Play is going to happen. That will probably be the first real look as far as what Sony Interactive Entertainment is going to be like, now being run by two CEOs. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of this was in the works before the new CEOs even happened. And frankly, I don't know how much of this is really just not being run by the president of Sony overall. We'll have a little bit more to say on that aspect, in that Neil Druckmann, who I guess I missed the note, was a fairly controversial figure as far as what he had said about Last of Us and how he'd irritated gamers. But yep, Neil Druckmann was forced / coerced into doing an interview for Sony to promote Sony stuff, and then they rewrote the interview and misquoted him incredibly poorly and actually got called out for bad journalism to the point where Sony has now issued an apology for the article, or the journalist is quote-unquote journalist. I don't think he really is a journalist from what I'm understanding. More than this was just a internal puff piece to show to investors. But yeah, that definitely gives the feeling that everything is being run from Sony overall, and that Sony overall wants a focus on promoting AI and Sony as a business overall. Video Games Chronicle says Stellar Blade and PS5 topped the US sales charts in April, which they had almost the exact same article for the UK sales chart. Xbox's Sea of Thieves was number 4, following the PS5 list debut, or PS5 version of the game. And no real surprise here. I mean, you can't really get past saying Stellar Blade was just the best-selling game at all in April, because there was just nothing else that even was trying to compete with it. What we'll see, I imagine, going forward is whether or not the Stellar Blade is still the only game worth mentioning for May, which I don't know. You run into an odd comparison where you have a very pretty looking game in Hellblade 2. So maybe it will be a case that a bunch of people just buy Hellblade 2 and before they get the message that Hellblade 2 is a pretty poor game as far as gameplay is concerned. And at a certain point, early access of Hades 2 may start hitting the sales charts, if early access games on Steam even are being listed on the sales charts. The truth here is that these research firms, and this one Circana, probably have no good information as far as Steam sales, and so their sales charts could be incredibly off. Helldivers 2 also could be mentioned. Fallout 76 jumped 151 places to number 8 in April. Fallout 4 I thought was selling a little bit more than that. Yep. Total consumer spending was went down by 3% year over year. So people in general, 3% of people in general are just not buying anything compared to last year. So here's the headline from GameDeveloper.com. Sony apologizes after completely botching the interview with Naughty Dog boss Neil Druckmann. They've retracted the interview after falsifying statements on topics such as animation, writing, AI, and upcoming projects. It was shared to promote Sony's new creative entertainment vision. And it made headlines after Druckmann appeared to suggest that AI technology would revolutionize game development. Yep, that's pretty much the entirety of that story. Is Sony straight up made a face false quotes effectively. I still think the bigger story to take from this, and the walkway to take from this, that's harder to realize, is that almost certainly these kinds of interviews happen more often than we know about it, where Neil Druckmann, under pressure as let's just assume he is a second party developer, or at least a closely affiliated third party developer to Sony, like he can't afford to have Last of Us games not be sold on PlayStation. So So he's under this influence of Sony. So he does this interview he probably never wanted to do in the first place, and then they just wrote the interview however they wanted it to read. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of other people who have done those types of interviews and not bothered to really complain about it in any way. How many people complained about it to a company like Sony, and Sony said, oh well, let's just compensate you and give you some money so you can drop this complaint without it coming to the public that the story is totally wrong. There really is no journalistic integrity at all in an advertorial, which is basically what this was. It was an advertisement pretending to be an editorial or news story, which there definitely should be a law against that. That ads should be clearly labeled as ads. But in this case, and I don't know how you can prove it was an ad since it wasn't talking specifically about a product as much as it was talking about a specific brand. But I think that's still, there probably is just no funding in the US government to actually track down people who do this. But yeah, it's not a tinfoil hat conspiracy. Put the tinfoil hat down for this one. But it's not a conspiracy that gamers are getting lied to in the form of news journalism. In fact, mainstream video game journalism is pretty awful in many cases. But yeah, gamers are getting lied to and definitely shouldn't be hyped. Although in this case, it wasn't even gamers being lied to as much as investors are being lied to. And there definitely is a lot of that going on too. Amazon has secured an open-world driving game from the former Forza Horizon devs. The untitled game is going to be released on PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S. I wonder, would it really hurt Microsoft to just drop the Series S completely? That's the direction they don't want to go, but wonder if it would just save them if they only made Xbox Series X's as far as the specs. And maybe you could save a few bucks and just not have a disk drive in one version. So you make an Xbox Series X Lite that just doesn't have a disk drive, and then let people upgrade it and add a disk drive if they want to later. It definitely is a case where the next time they make a console, they should just have a Firewire, well, not Firewire, that nobody uses Firewire in decades, USB Thunderbolt type connection, that would, a Thunderbolt PCI Express type connection would be what you would want to hook it up to. And just don't worry about people who are going to try and hack it or mod it, because they get around that stuff too. We are at a level as far as hacking consoles where people can very easily now desolder entire chips and mess with the electronics. And once you're at that level of modification that you can do it at home if you're a good enough solderer, there's just no way you're going to lock down your equipment that well. The best you can do is something like the Apple iPhones do, where every single chip is custom made and has an encryption communication going between the two chips, or if not an encryption, at least a handshake and a pairing process that is unique for each chip. That is also a nightmare. But yeah, people are not burning copies of Xbox Series X games in large numbers to steal those games. That they are almost certainly doing something else, or running emulators, or playing PC games instead. Just cracked versions of that. Apparently Multiversus relaunched to more than 114,000 concurrent players on Steam. This was never really going to be a game for me. I just don't have enough friends that have time to play this kind of game with me. But it does tell me from this that there is a slight chance of success here as a Smash Brothers competitor on PC. I still feel like it is kind of all over the place as far as the ridiculous characters, but is this like, no, this is Jason Voorhees. I thought maybe that was a Morton Joe from the Mad Max movie. Yeah, I guess you can just have some ridiculous characters. I'm not sure who this is. Maybe that'll work. Maybe just a bunch of silly characters will work. I don't know who this is either. Inherently, if you were to strip out the main characters in the Smash Brothers games, like Mario and Zelda and Pokemon, Pikachu, there is going to be a lot of secondary characters in Smash Brothers games too that you probably wouldn't play or care too much about. So really what to check here is what would the numbers be as far as concurrent players in the next few weeks? Is it going to stay high? And is this game really still in early access? And is it a game as a service that's just always going to be in early access? But yeah, for a game like this, I wouldn't be upset with fairly frequent updates, adding new characters, but I don't want that early access tag. I don't want to feel like the game is never really going to be in a finished enough state and that they at any point might just abandon it again. It is also a free-to-play game, so numbers can be extremely high on those kinds of games. A Harvest Moon game has been announced for iOS and Android, Harvest Moon Sweet Home. These kind of farming games might very well work well on a cell phone, where it's less time invested and less of a action focused experience. There's an exclusive from GameDeveloper.com here. Here are the 2024 Games for Change Award finalists. And do they have a whole list here, or are we gonna have to look at all the pictures? We do have a list. Do you think I recognize Juicant? And then I saw some of these games as they came out, and so this is a nice little test as far as just how many of these games have I not heard of or do I not recognize, which it's still most of them. A lot of these though also would be things I wouldn't have seen because they probably haven't been released on Steam. Yeah, I recognize about 2 games there. And then I have to use my magnifier to look at thumbnails. They've all been squished together. This one, Chance of Sinzar, is one I recognize. Most of these don't have a logo on the thumbnail. Inherently, there is, I think I recognize that one too. There is a, I need to fix the size of my magnifier, I think, and just make it bigger. There is still a issue here where the idea of making a game for change means you're not making a game for fun and as your first priority. And if your first priority is not to make a fun game, then you're failing. And I feel like it should just be more of a natural experience. And I feel like this game and this game, at least as the way they were, as the way I remember them, may very well have been more about making a game first that possibly could have some change. The other problem here, though, games for change is just a ridiculous concept because games are not going to have any major influence about anything. Well, let's just think about any form of art. When is the last time any form of art has actually convinced society to make any big changes? I think it probably would be something like To Kill a Mockingbird, like, or books similar like that that would put out new concepts and change the general feeling of things like segregation in the South, which is the example of, and racism in the South, I guess, in general, and the legal system in the South is To Kill a Mockingbird. But yeah, you're talking a very old book, well, many decades old book was the last thing to have major impact that I can think of. I don't think a single video game has convinced anybody to ever make any changes, because you're just not going there for that. And most changes nowadays are going to be people putting out talking points through speeches, through TV, showing up on talk shows, things like that, or do posts on Facebook or Reddit or something like that. If you're going to change people's political leanings or beliefs or thoughts, still not video games though. Yeah, and there's just so much forms of art now that, and it's so accessible. I don't think everybody would ever play the same game to actually affect any real change. So the whole concept of an award system like this is really just social justice warriors, armchair activists, slacktivists, whatever you want to call them. It's SJW type game developers, for the most part, wanting to be the momentum, the engine of change, and being incredibly lazy about it. It would be better, frankly, as far as for change awards, if these companies, if you gave awards to companies who donated to actual charities that were actually doing something for actual people, instead of trying to change the opinions of gamers who are just not going to be receptive to that at all. Yeah. Effective. You have to be effective in getting your message across and received. And video games is just not an effective medium for that. And I just can't see a way you could make a game like that at all. Because people don't play most of these games. People haven't heard most of these games. But even if you did do something like that, like, people would just not pay attention to it. Let's make an example here that would be probably my best thought as to how you could convince people something was bad. Have in the next Grand Theft Auto a very strong theme of sex trafficking, massage parlor type stuff. Have it be a case where it is depicted horrifically and awful, and like focus on that as how that is terrible. Don't have the player engage in it for fun or engage in it for profit. Have the player see it as an awful thing and ideally push the player into an option where they decide to shut down massage parlors and sex trafficking and things like that. Like, if GTA, which is probably going to be one of the biggest selling games when it gets released, had that message, I suspect nobody would really care. Mainstream video game journalism would talk about it a lot, but I don't think it would stop one person from thinking about visiting one of those massage parlor places themselves. People would just ignore it, and it would just be a bunch of news articles about how GTA has gone woke and how they should boycott it. Which inherently, yeah, the GTA games are built around just being criminals and doing the wrong things, so that they really have to glorify violence and sex as much as possible just to stay relevant. Otherwise, they will be claimed as going woke. Anyways, I guess that's a long rant to say, yeah, you're not going to affect change by putting out a video game. And noticeably, I don't think any of these games are actually pushing anybody to actually vote, which would be the number one thing in a republic democracy like the United States. It's just to get gamers to actually be registered to vote and go vote for whatever they actually believe in, or whoever they believe best will represent what they actually believe in, or even just voting with your dollar by not buying certain products or certain games. But no, almost always these games are telling the player that they should feel some kind of personal guilt or change their personal actions, which a lot of people probably should change their actions or feel guilty, but yeah, that's not really going to make major change. Moving on. Speaking of something else that may not make major change, Kerbal Space Program 2 developer says that the Intercept team will be laid off in June. Take-Two's CEO recently denied reports that the studio had been closed. Of course, it's very easy to deny reports at one point and then close it the next day, or keep the studio open and then lay off a team and have just a skeleton crew running the studio. Now, why do I say this may not make a big change? Because, you know, Intercept Games was not really doing a great job, as far as I could tell, making a Kerbal Space Program 2, and they have missed their launch window, pun intended, as far as releasing a sequel to Kerbal Space Program and making it be relevant. Like, at this point now, if a Kerbal Space Program 2 gets released in any kind of shape where it's actually worth playing, it'll be at the 10, 15, 20 year anniversary of Kerbal Space Program 1, and it still is unlikely to have a major improvement in its quality compared to Kerbal Space Program 1. What is interesting to take from this debacle is, one, don't get the wrong people in charge of things. The Intercept team is not the team of people who actually made Kerbal Space Program 1, and in fairness, they haven't released anything to my knowledge either yet. The actual programmers from the first game. But two, the other thought here would be, I think I've forgotten my other thought. I really do just need to maintain momentum when I'm talking, otherwise it will slip right out of my head. Yeah. Don't change engines. Yes, that was the other thing. Pun possibly intended there too. Because unless I'm completely misremembering, Kerbal Space Program 2 jumped from a built-in engine into either the Unity or Unreal Engine. Probably the Unreal Engine if I was to guess. but maybe the Unity engine. And this might be one of the most recent examples of where you shouldn't jump engines. That being said, that is my number one suggestion as far as Bethesda games, is for them to jump engines. I'm not sure what they should jump to, but it's probably Unreal Engine. Everything probably should just be on Unreal Engine. Either you're going to use the Godot engine to make a game and it be open source. I'd love everything to go to the Godot engine, but really for Kerbal Space Program, Unreal is what it should have started off with. There's just too much optimization that's already been done with the lighting and visualizations. It is a harder argument, though, in particular, to jump engines for a space simulator game than it is for Fallout New Vegas to be made in the Unreal Engine, where it would work very well to remake Fallout New Vegas in the Unreal Engine. You're doing a lot of different kinds of physics calculations for a space simulation game like Kerbal Space Program. So, trying to stay positive, my hope here is that they are bringing in a different team to finish Kerbal Space Program 2, and that it can come out and be received well. It will probably, once it is finally released, though, just be this slightly nostalgic thing. Making Kerbal Space Program 2 is almost the equivalent of trying to make a Minecraft 2, which they did make the Minecraft Bedrock Edition, but even then it's not a direct sequel to Minecraft 1. They probably should have just continued to work on Kerbal Space Program 1 forever. Cyan is still promoting things as their Riven remake is coming out, showing images of art. But yeah. Having in the past year finished playing all of the Myst games, I just don't feel like there's enough motivation in me to go and play a new Myst game that's been remade. I'm not sure that there is even a new version of Myst that I haven't played, or go and play the remake of Riven. I'd rather play the other Cyan games, which one even received well. And it's not a live stream if I don't point out something I don't like about YouTube gaming in general, whether it's their Twitter account or another. They are doing the 15 years of Minecraft, and so they brought on 4 people I don't recognize at all. And I guess at a certain point, Captain Sparkles must just be too old, and PewDiePie they don't want to really associate with. But yeah, you've got 3 girl Minecraft streamers, which maybe those are fairly successful Minecraft streamers, but I don't recognize any of them. And I definitely don't feel like Minecraft has been particularly a big thing lately. And this is somebody I think playing Stellar Blade, but they're not even really talking about Stellar Blade or mentioning it in even a hashtag. And is YouTube gaming at this point just straight up showing clips of people's channel, of the people they want to promote? Maximilian Dude has been on YouTube for 17 years. Yeah. And yeah, they really just have nothing to say here at all. I shouldn't have even bothered to mention it. But yeah, it is. I guess we'll see what the month is for next month that they celebrate. As far as, I guess May was Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, which didn't really lead to them actually posting anything or promoting anybody other than these 3 content creators. It is very much a case of them hand-picking a small collection of people they want to promote. YouTube has also effectively stabbed video game content creators in the back here, in that they are launching in-app playables, is what they're calling them, instead of not even calling them games, which this won't only hurt like video game YouTube content creators, but it's just going to inherently hurt all content creators, as this is just a completely different product designed to take away attention from YouTube as a video streaming application. And it seems like it's just a awkward backdoor attempts to get video games onto people's phones or Chromecasts without people actually installing the games. And certainly this highlights an issue if you're a parent and for some reason you don't want your kids to play video games, but you do feel like they should be able to watch YouTube. Well, now you no longer have that option to ban video games. Although you'd be a very weird parent to think that everything on YouTube is better or more age appropriate than hand selected video games. Yeah. And it's the same thing with like YouTube Kids, where if you're that strict of a parent, you would just ban YouTube or have them use the YouTube Kids app alone. My suggestion is don't give any positivity at all to these players and playables, and don't play them. None of these look like they are particularly great games. If anything, they feel like they're just an attempt at making what would have been little flash animation games before. But yeah, for everybody who says yes to this, you are going to see less and less people watching actual YouTube videos. Same was true for YouTube Shorts also, but yeah, that succeeded. And so yeah, there's a real danger that the playables will just be super successful. All of a sudden money that should go to fixing YouTube or making it be a better video streaming software gets put into making more games and acquiring more games. And inherently we don't want YouTube to just be an Xbox game studio equivalent where they're spending billions of dollars acquiring games company and it is an afterthought as far as YouTube being a video streaming platform. And because then that would cause major problems. Certainly it's just a lack of focus, and that's what this screams too, is that the fact that you're calling it YouTube and integrating it into YouTube instead of it just being part of Google Play Store is crazy. And almost certainly this negotiations for these playables and this plan comes from YouTube directly and not Google or the parent company Alphabet. And so it's just not going to be connected to the rest of the other companies. Lego has put out some videos and screenshots of what the Great Deku Tree is going to look like. The set is launching in September. This has 2 variants in which you can build it. Apparently Breath of the Wild has the Great Deku Tree. I didn't get far enough in the game to actually see it, and so this is like a very old version of the Deku Tree that you're seeing, and you have a Breath of the Wild Link here in blue minifig, and well, I think that's Link, not Zelda. And then, nope. This is in blue Link here with the Master Sword and Shield, which I'm not even sure you get in Breath of the Wild. And this is the Zelda in blue, not even really in a dress. And then the Deku Tree itself is just the big thing, which it doesn't even seem like there's much going on here. Its piece count may be fairly small at this rate. And see, I was thinking that there would probably be a playset on the back side of that, and there might be some small rooms on the back side of it, or it would be a thing where you turn it completely and you see it from the other angle. See if we can find the video. Apparently I don't have the video here, but I did see the video, and there is a younger version from Ocarina of Time of the Deku Tree, and frankly I think that is the more interesting looking version of it. But yeah, just looking at this picture, I think you're going to have a fairly low piece count and a fairly expensive set, just because it's going to have Nintendo licensed on it, which noticeably there is no Nintendo logo here, just a Zelda logo. I'm surprised they didn't force a Nintendo logo to be right here or right next to Lego. Interestingly, it does seem like this is just yet another standard Lego set. They're not doing the whole BrickHeads thing. 2,500 pieces. That's a lot of pieces for... I have no idea where all those pieces are going for what it looks like. And it's selling for $300. Yeah, this does not look like a $300 set. Really, as far as Legos go. You're definitely getting ripped off there. The Rhapsody 25th Anniversary Collection has been announced for the PS5 and Switch. Rhapsody is a musical based RPG that I think is somewhat famous more in Japan than in the West. Let's see. Here's the playables. Hint. The little video of how you would find all of it. Inherently, they're just cramming way too much into the YouTube app, and it just has way too much going anyways. It would make a lot of sense to at least be able to break it apart and have a Shorts app that you would launch just to immediately go into Shorts, and a YouTube app that would just go into YouTube longer videos, and then put the game app somewhere else too. Even if you can technically browse to each of those sections, a direct to that homepage shortcut would be appreciated. Of course, that's not what they want. They want to control where you land when you first launch the app, so they can shove as much content and ads as they can in front of your face before you can do anything else. There has also been a controversy here, which YouTube has followed up on, where it seems like some people using some ad blockers were straight up seeing the videos just be skipped completely, not even being allowed to watch the videos. And YouTube has come back and said, well, for some users they're having other issues and that's not the issue, but who knows what's really going on. There's definitely going to be a danger at some point where YouTube content creators might be using ad blockers and they might get their entire Google accounts deleted, or professionals that have had Google emails for decades might get their entire Google account and their emails and their Drive accounts all deleted just because they're using an ad blocker on YouTube. Yeah, there could be a crazy crackdown that would piss off a lot of people, and what would you do? As far as a YouTube content creator, yeah, you can try and go to Twitch, certainly, but that's about it. There's really no real competition. Moving on, GameDeveloper.com says that Gameloft Romania has cut 136 jobs and is closing CLUJ, I would assume that's pronounced Cluj Studio. The quote here says, "As a company, we need to constantly review our production capacities." I do know Gameloft, certainly, as a company, but I have no idea what games they've made recently, or I can't really attribute a single game to them. Yeah. This was the Bollywood-inspired game I talked about in the last stream that we didn't see. As far as it's a turn-based RPG called Ikeyam. Ikeyam. You can see in the animation style, it's round 3D CGI characters, and so while it might have some of that Indian Bollywood feel to it, it's not, in my mind, going to be a real Bollywood style of game that would be huge in its ambition and low in its budget. It's also probably worth pointing out that this is a Bollywood-inspired game being made by a Toronto, Canada-based developer, which is definitely doesn't feel like you are speaking your truth or telling your story at that point. Unless it happens to be a team of people from India or who are fans of Bollywood content. Yeah. To me, it looks like this is just kind of a silly game, and they may have very flippantly decided to be inspired by Bollywood content. I'm not sure who, but I believe, I'm not sure if I'm right about this, but I believe the president of India, who last time I heard from this guy, I think he's the president of India, who came off as a little bit loony, crazy. Well, the guy I'm thinking of has straight up said that he believes he was not born as a human and is a messiah character, which, yeah, that never ends well, certainly when you're claiming to be born from God, whatever God you're speaking of. But yeah, there's nothing particularly too interesting here, and honestly, if you told me this was Indian inspired, I would believe it more than Bollywood. It just doesn't really have that feel of being Bollywood inspired, in part because it's just animated, and I've never seen anything animated from Bollywood. When you just break it down, like, Bollywood is highly ambitious directors trying to emulate the major Hollywood style movies, and so it's always, everything I've seen has always been live action actors and them trying to do something that was like a Hollywood big budget movie. The equivalent in video game would be to try and make a game like Hellblade 2 with that high level of hyper realistic graphics on a much lower budget. Yeah, that's where the thought and the mentality is. Yeah. Anyways, this would be the second or third Indian focused game I've seen in the past 10 years, and there is probably some culture and stories worth being told from the Indian people in video game form, but so far it hasn't been done particularly well to even give it a chance to be received well. Alright, here's Lego. Lego will jump back to the set. Yeah, they're promoting Fortnite. I guess they've completely, yeah, they gave up on one of their expansions a long time ago, I guess. As far as it was supposed to be this Scooby-Doo-esque spooky Lego sets. They didn't sell very well, and they had more interactivity as far as augmented reality and like a QR code type stickers that you would put on the sets, and it didn't really happen. So here's the Great Deku tree from Ocarina of Time. You can see it's just green and it doesn't have all of that same long beard elements to it. Then it switches to the Breath of the Wild. Yep. And then it's closed off here, and there's more you can build in the Ocarina of Time. Definitely feels like the Ocarina of Time set is the bigger focus, because you're missing all the pieces being used to build what would have been the starting hut for Link is just gone. But then you do get more trees here around it. But yeah, they're still not really showing a backside if there's actually anything playable in the backside here. I'm just kind of assuming it's an ugly side and that there's nothing playable there. Well, I assume you're getting an ability to have this Link and the other Link, but maybe not. Maybe there is only enough pieces here to make one Link, and there isn't even a Zelda from Ocarina of Time as far as a minifig, as far as it shows. Yeah. Yeah, overpriced. Definitely overpriced at $300. I don't think we have anything else as far as Lego to mention or look at. Yeah, the most recent thing I guess they're promoting still is the Lego Dreams with a Z cartoon. Yeah, you gotta be careful with these Lego Nintendo sets, and it still doesn't really work that well. Like, because inherently, if you want to play Breath of the Wild, which is a big enough game to take up your time, why buy a Lego set that would take you away from playing Breath of the Wild? Why not just have a cheaper toy set that is not made of Lego bricks, which is at least 3 times the cost in plastic? I guess they just don't really make toys or have toy stores anymore, so Lego has gained a lot of attention for that reason alone. But yeah, I think I would prefer to just get kids a t-shirt or a stuffed doll, something that's way cheaper to celebrate their fandom of Zelda, than a Lego set. And if you're going to do Lego sets, I would still say the Lego City sets, which have been pretty consistent for decades, are the ones to get, because a Lego City set from 10 years ago still works on that minifig scale with other sets, and those pieces are going to be more interchangeable. And inherently, the Great Deku tree is not likely to connect to too many other sets. I could suspect that they might make a Zelda castle, and a Zelda castle might interconnect to the Deku tree on the same scale. But I don't know what else you could even make. You could try and make like the 4 Divine Beasts characters from Breath of the Wild, which would kind of make sense, and have them interconnect. But then you would have probably other sets that aren't in the same scale to make like the Master Sword or the Shield. And I don't think they're going to release too much as far as any of the older Zelda games. Anything from Ocarina of Time. Anyways, moving on. We're going late today. Bleach Brave Souls is coming to the Xbox One and Switch this summer. It's currently available for the PS4, PC, iOS, and Android. Bleach, the Thousand Year War, was the anime to kind of wrap up and redo the story. And yeah, I think that's still getting released on Hulu. I'm not sure if they put out any new episodes recently. And it was kind of rushing through the end of the manga. It felt like rushing too fast and not particularly that interesting, because it was like one bad guy being defeated in one episode, if not 2 or 3 bad guys being defeated in one episode. Where it would have been nice to take 2 or 3 episodes fighting each bad guy. Bleach is also kind of a older anime at this point, so I don't think it's really relevant or deserves to be relevant at this point. I assume this is a mobile phone game first with microtransactions. Yeah. We had the recompiled project with Zelda and Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask's codebase is fairly similar as Ocarina of Time is. So now an unofficial PC port of Zelda Majora's Mask has been released. This is from the same team that made an Ocarina of Time PC port. Now these are the PC ports, these are not the recompiled efforts, but there is a high chance that the recompile efforts might help more PC ports be made. The big difference there is, one is the recompiling is translating the code from one operating system CPU architecture to another, where the PC port is actually breaking down the code to a human understandable level and then rewriting the code where need be to make it work on modern computers. A real port leaves the door open much wider to modify things and improve things, where the recompile port is pretty much you're going to get what you got before at best. Maybe you can do a few tweaks here and there, but adding the ability to have like super widescreen resolutions, which you can see on this monitor, is probably past the level of what a recompile port can do. That being said, if you're just trying to emulate a game, recompiling might be better than emulating if you're trying to have a fairly pure experience and not add a bunch of new features. The question is, how many people want the new features? How many people want to add ray tracing? So the big features here for Ocarina of Time port is higher frame rates, frame buffer effects, a free camera looking mode, save related enhancements, auto saving at timed intervals, backported pause saving from Ocarina of Time. There's a binary save import where you can load in saves. You can equip items using a D-pad slot. There's heads-up display editors, features, and there's support for the Nintendo 64 1.0 USA version and GameCube USA ROMs. And a bunch of enhancements too, otherwise. And some cheats, which again, recompile is not going to make it easy to have infinite health or infinite magic, infinite items. Save editors. That's certainly something that Bethesda could have too, is just a save editor for all their games. So you can edit to save files, and I imagine somebody else has already made that, but yeah. For as buggy as Bethesda games get, being able to edit to save files would be very helpful. Now, what I really would like to see, though, while this is nice, is I just think it's going to be really slow for people to make PC ports for every single Nintendo 64 game. And the vast majority of people are not going to actually ever want a port of most of the Nintendo 64 games. So it'll be the top 10% of games that maybe get ports from Nintendo 64 catalog, whereas a recompile effort may very well just get every single Nintendo 64 game running very well, and in the same way that an emulator on a good enough PC can just run every Nintendo 64 game emulating things very well. And I think we will just see a widening of the gap as far as emulation being the pure experience for people who want the pure experience, and then most people just wanting to play the game in the newest form and easiest form. I definitely, had I been given the choice, would have preferred to play Fallout New Vegas in a modded form that would have been much more modern and easier and just better, less crashy, better lighting, things like that. Just keeping the flashlight on in some places, or making you invincible in certain areas. That's one thing I didn't even mention, is I fast traveled to one location and there was like 5 death claws at that location, and if I wasn't playing on very easy, I would have almost certainly died. The 12 new episodes of Pokemon Horizons are now available on the BBC iPlayer. This is from Video Games Chronicle, so they're mentioning BBC iPlayer in particular. The show is available on Netflix outside the UK. I'm not 100% sure it's actually available on Netflix in the United States, but I'll assume that's right. Would also say I personally don't like the idea that this is actually a Pokemon, which I believe is the case, is that this little laptop type computer is a Pokemon, because then that brings about the idea that any kind of technology or equipment is Pokemon, and I have no idea how a Pokemon would become a piece of technology. Maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe this isn't actually a Pokemon. I would kind of hope it isn't. But this also kind of highlights where they are going with Pokemon Horizons and their new protagonist characters, and that it is being set in a more modern time with more modern technology. I guess the next Pokemon game is going to be Pokemon Legends Z-A. Let's see. Konami also has confirmed that Silent Hill live stream is going to be happening this week. It is a digital showcase for Thursday, May 30th. So several announcements tomorrow. Yep. I wonder if, let's see, January, February, March, April, May. No, I think there's another month before the end of the quarter. So I don't know why the end of May is when they're starting to have so many announcements, other than it is just summer. And I guess kids are out of school, so let's make a bunch of announcements. I guess the real question to ask there is, are kids watching these announcement streams at all? I suspect they aren't. And it's not like adults get summer off unless they're teachers, and even then they don't always get summer off. So it kind of feels like there may just be a tradition of announcing games. It may also be a case that they just need to start getting people hyped about video games again for Black Friday and Christmas, and that they can't just churn out nothing for 6 months out of the year. Let's see. And then Minecraft, I guess, is still giving out things. Let's see, they're advertising this immersive Minecraft adventure. Although I don't know where this live action experience would happen. Seems like kind of thing that you could do at like Universal Studios. I guess Dallas, Texas? Hashtag Minecraft Dallas, DALLAS. I wouldn't be surprised if whatever Minecraft experience is, it is way worse than what you're seeing here. It is just it's gonna be mocked as a ridiculous event. Inherently, Minecraft is around punching trees and chopping wood and mining things, and I just don't know how you make that happen in the real world without being incredibly dangerous, or at least incredibly violent. Yeah, the 15-year anniversary event's still being celebrated, though. Yep. The Konami Silent Hill event is called Silent Hill Transmission. The game, film, and merchandise updates are apparently all going to be talked about. Yep. Not really a lot going on there. So let's quickly go through all of the games that came out on Steam and see what we decide needs to be on the fall list and what can be left on the floor as far as not being interesting enough to keep an eye on it. Every time I go through all these games, I'm just making the fall list bigger and bigger, and it's just making a bigger problem for future me. This looks like this is a old game, but I don't recognize it, so it would have to have some relevancy that I'm just unaware of. This is funny. There was a game like this that I wanted to play where you played as a drunk guy and you had to try and control the drunk guy walking around. This time they've made it 3 goblins in a trench coat and gotten rid of the drunk element as a concept, and this is probably a different developer, but as an interesting thought as far as how can you make that concept more family friendly. Of Corpse Keeper is mixed more recently, so it seems like it probably came out of early access and people are not happy. They're probably going to say the game has been abandoned. Let's just look at the negative reviews. Last update was about 7 months ago. I don't really have time to read this, do I? Let's just leave it on the follow list. Inherently, I guess, more and more is being done after the streams. And so, I think there is room for me to move the follow list cleanup to happen after the stream. And that I'm just need an entire scripted program macro to run after my stream. It's like, here's your relaxing work after it. Instead of trying to do things on screen. Yeah, in particular, the follow list cleanup is my own personal decision, so I can see a thought. I wish this was an actual game. This actually looks interesting visually, but with the art style. But I know this isn't a game. Yeah. At a certain level, I guess you could justify getting rid of any content in these live streams if I wanted to, but none of it makes a lot of sense to get rid of. Looking at games and giving each game at least a small highlight in the live streams is fair enough. That way, if somebody completely disagrees with my curation that I'm doing here, as far as what I make into YouTube Shorts, they still are getting to at least see these new games. I guess if something is already on the follow list and it's mixed reviewed or below very positive, I'm not going to make a new YouTube short on it. Although inherently I probably should just remove it off the follow list at that point also. I suppose there might be a point in the future. We're not anywhere close to that point at this time, but this is a tower defense game. It doesn't look terrible, but I'm not going to promote tower defense games. There is a point in the future, let's make sure this supports English, where if headlines were doing way better as clips or separate videos, maybe I should just not live stream the headlines. Suppose there is a point there. It would be incredibly dangerous though to do it that way. I would have to have something else running, making other videos at the same time, and even doing that sounds really dangerous. Like, because right now I've for the most part figured out how to stream to Twitch and YouTube at the same time, but if my second instance of OBS that's streaming to Twitch had a macro that was recording the videos and clips, that would take up more of my GPU processing power than I would be comfortable with, I think. Woman's School Simulator. Doesn't look like anything. Yep. We have a lot of duds today. A lot of games, but mostly duds. From what I'm seeing. There's a few that might be good enough. I don't think this is good enough though. I still have to be pretty flippant on what I decide to highlight. I suppose if GPU power was no issue, making clips that way would work. Then that would just be more videos getting put up. And at a certain point that does make an argument to just make a clips channel at that point and put it there. So yeah. Well, I might programmatically be able to make clips. I think having an editor to handle the uploads and scheduling and just making sure things come out in a timely manner would really be necessary. Yeah. I suppose that's an interesting question too. If you're limited to 100 uploads per day as far as YouTube Shorts filling up the 100 uploads limit on one channel, can you upload to another channel? Not sure if you can or not. I need to figure out a better way of transitioning at that point too. Having an interstitial thing that talks about the Steam charts here, which is what we're looking at now. I guess I've only been streaming for 2 hours, but boy does it feel like it's been way longer than that. So one of the things I'm thinking about adding is a fake entry into my chart that would be above Counter-Strike 2 as a header label. That's something I could do, certainly. Multiverses here is a big contender in the number 8 spot. Its all-time before it was relaunched was 153, I think, but in the 24 hours it's at 114. Destiny 2 with its final piece DLC still pretty hyped. Fallout 4 still pretty high up there. I guess what we would mostly want to see is if the Rogue Prince of Persia is in the top 100. Fallout 76 is down here at the 79th spot, below Binding of Isaac Rebirth. 2 single player games really though, so if anything this is a statement on how terribly Elder Scrolls Online is doing these days. I think there is probably room to shut down the Elder Scrolls Online concept and put a lot of the content that has been done in Elder Scrolls Online out as a single player experience. Maybe you don't call that Fallout, maybe you don't call that Skyrim 2 or Elder Scrolls 6. Maybe you just call it Elder Scrolls Offline or something like that. Yeah, OBS is beating Hades 1. It's probably not fair to compare those two, but it's also a little weird that anybody's using OBS in Steam version of OBS. Yeah, as far as I can tell, the Rogue Prince of Persia is not here. Fallout 76 is in the 46th spot. don't think there's been an update to the Binding of Isaac Rebirth in a long time, so it's not surprising that it's pretty low on the chart. Overall, it still seems like we are seeing a trend downward. I still haven't worked on my chart. Just always forget to do it. Yeah. My thought here is if I put something up here at a very high number, then I could put a title on this list. And then that would maybe label what this is, as far as this is supposed to be all-time highs. What games in the past year specifically have had the highest number of players. Palworld beating Counter-Strike 2. Of course, this list also is not going to change much, and this list is just automatically connected to specific colors. It's nice that it's interactable. Certainly. Counter-Strike 2 doesn't even show up. Dota 2, PUBG, Helldivers does show up. So the top 4 of these games are just off the scale as far as the number of players. Most of these are multiplayer games though. Yeah. But yeah, this can be used to highlight Baldur's Gate 3 has really had a fairly large drop off. But yeah, this really highlights the paths of the biggest games. But yeah, overall, still seems like it's just a trend downward. And I feel like what's happening here with the dates is that it will just slowly squish more and more dates together, and this chart will never really do a bad job of showing information. I am limiting this chart also to the January 1st of 2024, so I eliminated roughly 3 months of data that would have been on the left side of this, so we can have a chart that is specifically around this year, which is to mostly say not much has come out this year and not many people are playing much. The Steam Open World Crafting Fest is happening, so let's click on that and see if there's anything particularly interesting here. The issue here is either you're going to get things on sale that you probably already have heard of, or you're going to have promotions for things you haven't heard anything about. As far as Point Shop, seems like there's several free items you can claim. I definitely heard a YouTuber talk about how uninterested they were as far as all of the Point Shop items. It's very understandable. It is just pointless content. Although, ironically, there's less Point Shop pointless content that's thrown in your face for the entirety of Steam compared to the amount of pointless vanity items, cosmetic items that are in one game, such as Yu-Gi-Oh! I think they probably are stretching the definition quite a bit here as far as crafting, open world survival crafting, but maybe not. Yep. At a certain point I could see maybe wanting to play a Dune game, but I would be doing it specifically to try and get some free views and clicks, and that's never really worked before, so I don't really suspect I would waste my time or buy the game early enough for that to have a chance. I guess I just don't really believe that it ever worked, and I don't believe it actually works now, as far as the idea of buying a game on day one and playing it. In fact, I haven't even had a comment suggesting I should play more relevant, newer games. And yeah, I don't feel like there's a lot of people even suggesting newer games at this point, because I just don't think there are that many newer games being released. We can see It Takes Two is playable on the Steam Deck, which I wonder if there are just going to be some ads like this that pop up every now and then, where all they have to really do is change the thumbnail here and then say play it on the Steam Deck would be the same. And I wonder, when we see that ad, does that mean the other bigger ads will go away from the storefront, which it seems like that is the case. So it definitely feels like they're A/B testing their ads for Steam Deck, which is probably a great way to keep people paying attention. In the last 30 days, though, it is worth pointing out that Multiversus is only mixed reviewed. It's not being received as well as one would like. It's really hard to search the Steam front page when you just know there's nothing huge to even talk about. Yeah. For an event, this is fairly boring to just have this top page. I'm still just wondering if the Summerfest is going to either be non-existent or very boring, or if the Summerfest is going to come out swinging. This is barely video game related, but Adafruit, the gadget maker, has put out an accessibility device that is programmable. It has a TRRS connector that would be tip, ring, ring, sleeve, mini audio jack connector, mini stereo jack connector, and that is the standard for accessibility buttons. And so that means you can put it in an audio splitter to turn it into TRS connectors and plug in 2 buttons per device, and the device is cheap enough you could have multiple devices, and you can program it to send any kind of keyboard signal through USB to your computer or your device, which it would just take a little bit of 3D modeling and 3D printing to take several of those together and have what the majority of the Microsoft accessibility controller is. It just wouldn't have a D-pad and 2 giant buttons on the front of it, which might be preferred. And I imagine you could build that for considerably less than that accessibility controller, the original Microsoft, not really built by Microsoft accessibility controller, costs. But yeah. If you are in need of adding some buttons somewhere, a programmable one, easily replaceable if it breaks, one makes a lot of sense. Yep. All you'd have to do is have multiple of them plugged into like a USB hub device, so you could do multiple things. Alright, and then I'm kind of rambling here, So let's just do the Video Games Chronicles headlines and just be done with today, because yeah, I'm not feeling particularly energetic today, I can tell. PlayStation State of Play has been announced for Thursday. Show will last over 30 minutes. Stellar Blade and PS5 topped the US sales chart in April. And see, I can already tell I don't think it would work to make clips automatically like this. I would need to do it after the fact. And I could do that. Certainly I could program some kind of macro to do that, to take the video and then clip it, break it up in clips. But yeah, the remuxing, the re-rendering it's called remuxing, to convert it would take longer than the few seconds it takes me between each of these. But then that would be better, proper clips, certainly. I just don't know if I can take that last step to automate the whole thing and upload the whole thing. But yeah, definitely seems like I could make a clips channel. But I just don't see any point of doing that. You kind of have to be already popular to justify making a clips channel. If I was to do it, then I'd probably want to put all my YouTube shorts on the clips channel and then have my main channel just be my pre-recorded footage, which nobody watches. Yeah. Let's see. Moving on. Sony apologizes to Neil Druckmann following a heavily edited interview. Amazon secures an open-world driving game from former Forza Horizon devs. Multiversus relaunches to more than 114,000 concurrent players on Steam. A PlayStation VR 2 PC adapter has been spotted. Sony announced it was working on a PC compatibility for the headset in February. These controllers with the bumper guards feel really way too big. And I think they literally are just bumper guards and nothing else. I don't think they do anything. Marvelous announces a digital showcase for this week. Kerbal Space Program 2 developer says Intercept team will be laid off in June. CD Projekt says it wants to release major games more frequently. Xbox reportedly signs the first game from Rocksteady co-founders' new studio. Destiny 2 The Final Shapes launch trailer is here ahead of next week's release. Yep. Final Shape launches June 4th, and I assume that's going to be the last bit of DLC for Destiny 2. Although it's not like they've really announced anything new that Bungie is going to work on. Sony's Days of Play sale includes 30% off PlayStation Plus and $50 off PS5 consoles. Black Ops 6 live-action trailer released as Game Pass launch announced. LEGO The Legend of Zelda Great Deku Tree officially launching in September. Days of Play 2024 adds new PS2 classics and PSVR 2 games to PS Plus. 12 new episodes of Pokemon Horizons are available now on the BBC iPlayer. Konami confirms a Silent Hill livestream for this week. Dragon's Quest III HD 2D remake has been teased for the first time in 3 years. And a court has found that Destiny 2 cheat seller infringed on copyright in a landmark case. I did get some more details on this case, and apparently the reason that this went to a jury instead of just being done with the arbitration and the, I believe it was $14 million, $4.3 million, that's a big difference, judgment, was that the person made a counterclaim, and by making a counterclaim, they went to court and have now been seen by a jury, which, you know, maybe he wouldn't have created the precedent if he hadn't made a counterclaim. Although I can't really blame somebody for making a counterclaim when they're facing millions of dollars and possible jail time in some cases. The best thing, though, I could say is that don't be a cheat seller, or at least don't get caught being a cheat seller. Although everybody thinks they're not going to be caught, and everybody does get caught, or way more people get caught than they think they're going to be caught. It takes a certain level of stupidity to break the law, or at least recklessness in the first place, because you are just not evaluating the risk versus the reward, since the risks are so incredibly punitive and the rewards may be high too. But yeah, the old phrase, don't do the crime if you can't do the time, doesn't even make sense anymore. It's more, don't do the crime if you can't afford millions of dollars and perhaps the rest of your life, or at least the good years of your life, in jail. Anyways, moving on, we are now at the Gematsu articles. It really wasn't that many headlines from Video Games Chronicle, and there's not that many headlines. It still seems like there's really not too much to be announced yet. Friday stream, though, may be very long, with 2 extra events happening. Mortal Kombat 1 DLC character Homelander launches June 4th for Combat Pack owners and June 11th for all others. I do believe they announced another season of The Boys for Amazon Prime Video. I think most people would have expected it would have continued. But yeah. Not sure if they're going to make another season of Gen 5, though, as a spin-off show. It makes sense to do it. It's not like Amazon Prime has a lot of other content. Amazon Games is going to publish Maverick Games' developed open-world driving game for the PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. This is a little bit more details than what I was realizing was being said, in that this makes Amazon Games actually be a publisher, and it paints an interesting question with all where potentially we'll have Amazon Games on Amazon.com going on sale very often, and Amazon getting into the video game industry as a publisher a lot more than they've succeeded as far as being a developer or owning companies that they're developers on. And as a publisher, I could also see people seeing a lot more ads for Amazon Games published games on Twitch, since they own Twitch also. Tales of Toyo Toki, Arrival of the Witch, launches August 22nd in the West. Apparently it's a heartwarming coming-of-age story. Guess this is first I've heard of this? No, not really. Looks like a visual novel. Looks like it is coming to the West, but I wouldn't really make a YouTube short when all of this is in Japanese, and it is going by the Witch of Ihanashi. So it's got a completely different name for the Western release. So yeah, I might make a YouTube short on this later when they translate it to English and update the Steam page. Gmod Archives Plus Persona 3 Aegis, the first mission, launches June 6th in Japan. I'm pretty sure this is a spin-off Persona game, and this highlights visually where the Persona series really started, and unless they're going to remake a lot of the side games. I can't imagine this is going to be relevant just by the visuals. This is another game that's just not in English, but it does also speak to seeing more and more Japanese language only games show up on PC and Steam. They definitely seem like they're getting deeper into PC gaming, or more open to PC gaming at least. Famitsu's review scores for issue 1851 are available on Famitsu.com. Let's see. There's a game called Capes that got 32 out of 40, and then Toho Spell Carnival 29 out of 40. I'm still not understanding the whole Toho series of games, but most of them don't seem to be received particularly well. Tenshi no Uta collection launches September 12th in Japan. Not sure what the word Uta means in Japanese. This would be Tenshi the Uta. Some kind of JRPG. I'd assume maybe Uta means hero. I suspect it wouldn't mean god. It's a apparently old turn-based RPG from the looks of it. Definitely seems like some fairly old animation for at least one of these games. Yep. I would like some more backstory, but there's no... Let's see. PC Engine games from a long time ago. Yeah, many decades ago. Rhapsody 25th Anniversary Collection has been announced for the PS5 and Switch. I think each of these games are individually available on Steam, possibly already. Reveria, The Promised Land Remaster is now available for iOS and Android in Japan. This definitely speaks to the animation style of more modern times in Japan, where you have these more skinny armed, skinny necked, way too big head. I don't know if this almost is like a hybrid of like moe or kawaii. Yeah, I don't know if I'd pronounce it, if I would describe it by either art style, really. Well, we really have to widen what the definition is. I'd probably put this in the moe art style. Then the actual little characters here would be chibi art style. Seeing games like this still being made, even for cell phones, really does speak to, I think, the power of nostalgia as far as Japanese RPG players. They still really do, or they're at least willing to accept and play some of these old 8-bit, 16-bit looking RPG games. Whereas it's been probably weeks since I last even called a game an RPG Maker game. Or, no, I probably did it even on the last stream, but I definitely have not been thinking about there being a deluge of RPG Maker games on Steam recently. So the asset flipper and garbage game makers seem to have given up on most of that. That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime Isekai Chronicles opening movie is available on Komatsu. I find it fairly irritating as far as this anime, which I haven't actually seen, in that the character got reincarnated as a slime and then pretty quickly evolves his body back into just looking humanoid. But I guess that really isn't the focus of the anime. And it does seem like people enjoyed it when it came out. This game is still not out though. Should I make a YouTube short for something that's just released an opening movie though? I guess not. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to do that. Marvelous Games Showcase 2024 is set for May 30th. Kamaru, a frog refuge, adds Xbox Series versions and launches June 8th. Cozy farming simulator game. Yeah. What I probably should do is consider, should I make a YouTube short for a game that is going to come out before the launch date has come out? I don't think I should make a second YouTube short for games. Like, there's basically no way, if today is May 29th, there's no way that by June 8th any YouTube short I make is going to come out and air on my channel. So I need to probably decide 10 days, 30 days. 30 days seems to be about the right time. 1 month. If something is announced and it's coming out in the next month, I probably should just not make a second YouTube short. That inherently would mean making less YouTube shorts, which would inherently be a better experience overall. I would much prefer to have a trickle of YouTube shorts coming out than the deluge that is happening right now. And even though it's probably still going to be a deluge if I can refine the number of repeats and reduce the number of repeats, that's still going to help somewhat. Any little bit's going to help, I think. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is coming to Xbox Game Pass on day 1. This has been updated at Gamatsu.com. Let's see what the update says. Microsoft confirmed it'll be playable via Xbox Game Pass Ultimate and PC Game Pass and Xbox Game Pass for consoles. So that seems like everybody with Xbox Game Pass is gonna get it. There might be a cheap version of Xbox Game Pass that doesn't get it, but I don't think so. World War I survival horror game Conscript launches in 2024 for all consoles and PC. I saw this game Conscript. Wasn't really sure what it was. It does seem a little bit out there. It almost feels like a throwback to Resident Evil 1 or Silent Hill 1. Until Then launches June 25th. So again, I think the rule going forward is that if it's within the next month or the 30 days time, I shouldn't bother making another YouTube short on it. Which, yeah, that'll get more confused when we hit June 15th. But yeah, 30 days rolling timeline is what I'm thinking to be the cutoff. PlayStation Plus monthly games and bonus game catalog for the PSVR 2 and PS2 Classic catalog titles for June 2024 have been announced. That is a mouthful of descriptions. I guess it is a fairly long list here. of games. Definitely seems like they are trying to promote PlayStation. And it does also seem like they're trying to go with more of a colorful PlayStation theme here, instead of just an all white PlayStation theme. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see the branding and the logos all change around the PlayStation now that there's 2 new people in charge. Alright, now let's go through the GameDeveloper.com articles and then we'll be done for today. Sony apologizes after completely botching an interview with Naughty Dog boss Neil Druckmann. VR developer Sin Studio has raised $2.5 million to fund its next project. Its debut project was Swordman VR with a multiplayer combat game. YouTube launches in-app playables arcade. No real list here of all the games though. Maybe there really are only 4. I think there's more than 4 though. Strong Cyberpunk 2077 sales lead CD Projekt's early 2024 profits. Dragon's Dogma 2 has sold 3 million copies in 2 months. Microsoft confirms that Call of Duty is heading to Xbox Game Pass. Gameloft Romania has cut 136 jobs and closes the Cluj studio. And then we have an opinion piece here from GameDeveloper.com as far as why some games can't work well on Steam Deck. Controller support is just one hurdle for games like Besiege. Spiderling Studios explores why adding that to the PC isn't as simple as copying and pasting the console counterpart's code. Yep, this might be an interesting advertorial. It really is mostly just talking about Besiege. I'm not sure what their argument particularly is, and I'd have to just skim all of this, and I don't want to waste the time skimming all of this. It's a physics heavy game, I guess, and so the kind of uniqueness of the shared RAM between the GPU and the specific GPU being used in the Steam Deck may be a problem. I guess the question is which would be a bigger problem. If a Steam Deck 2 was developed and it had a more traditional separate CPU and GPU with separate RAM for the CPU and GPU, would that magically create a whole bunch of extra compatibility for games? Or would that really just cause a lot of problems in that you would have a split architecture there where people with the original Steam Decks, the Steam Deck 1s, would then be left out and less supported? It definitely would be a step back. Inherently, if Besiege game creators know their game is physics heavy, then they should just be able to write a mode to use less physics that might look worse or calculate things slower. It seems to me what they're claiming here is that they programmed, whoops, threw another mug that was empty and hit another mug. I've got to figure out a better way to do that. I could just be a normal person and put the mugs down on the table instead of throwing them on my bed across the room like a psychopath. Yeah, it seems like the argument here is Besiege just programmed their game in such a over-optimized way that it's now no longer portable to other systems. where clearly the future is, even for consoles, shared RAM between the CPU and GPU, and frankly, even for PCs, we should hit a point where it is just shared RAM between the CPU and GPU. And yeah, Intel and AMD have been slow to really adapt PCs to follow what is the obvious path forward, in the same way that consoles have been able to reinvent themselves and adapt to things. Let's see. Jury has backed Bungie in a lawsuit against the cheat maker Aim Junkies. A lawsuit alleges that Activision, Meta bared responsibility for the Uvalde school shooting. That story I don't think we'll ever hear about again, and seems fairly baseless in its claims. Alright, and so that's going to be it for this show. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, and keep on watching. Thanks.